Hello and welcome to my video log of being a pregnant fit mom. So this is actually my fourth pregnancy. They technically count miscarriages as a pregnancy. So my second pregnancy, I only went to 8 weeks. So this is super early. Right now, I'm currently sitting most likely around 4 weeks. So no one really knows that I'm pregnant yet while making this video, except for a few people, because at this point, anything is possible, and I recognize that. But what I regretted in my first two pregnancies was that I didn't share information with the rest of the world about what it means to be pregnant and be fit at the same time. And now I'm already have 2 kids, and so I'm sure this pregnancy will look much different than my first two, aside from the fact that I'll still continue to work out, still teach classes, hopefully, and still lift. But I'm sure it'll be more tiring in the third pregnancy now that I've had 2 kids. The second pregnancy was definitely more challenging with 1 child already, so I'm sure this will be a awesome challenge for me. But what I wanted to share was physiologically and psychologically what's happening right now as someone who knows their body well. I knew something was going on. You know, I only had 1 cycle. I've been breastfeeding for 2 years at this point. My 2-year-old is still breastfeeding at nighttime. So I've only had 1 cycle and I'm pregnant again. So I really just was thinking I wasn't going to be pregnant yet, but there's a lot of clues that were going on that I've had in the past. And so I'm going to share some of those even as early as about 1 to 1.5 weeks. So I was home for Christmas in New Jersey with my parents, and so at that point it seems like I was probably about 1 to 2 weeks pregnant, right around the week of Christmas. And in that week already, when I went to the gym and took some fitness classes, I could already tell there was heart rate changes going on. I was in a couple of cycle classes that week, and I noticed that I was having a harder time getting in control of my heart rate. It's kind of where your heart rate jumps. It's kind of like going from baseline, and then all of a sudden I'm at like 165 beats per minute. It might not be at 165, but it feels like it. So you feel like all of a sudden you just like jumped in intensity, and that's totally normal. My first pregnancy, I remember specifically I was doing a leg day, and I was like leg pressing. Wasn't even doing anything crazy, and I could feel my heart rate like jumping, and I had to like rest, like heavy rest in between sets. Not something, you know, I might only take 30, 60 seconds. I was taking like 90-second breaks because I couldn't catch my breath. My body wasn't recovering fast, and at that point I was about the same time. I was maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks pregnant. So there's this heart rate change that immediately happens when you're pregnant. And I've even noticed it now. I didn't notice it before because I wasn't paying much attention to my heart rate monitor or my resting heart rate on my Apple Watch. But today my resting heart rate was only at 57, which is still very healthy, obviously. But my normal resting heart rate is about 42 to 47 each day. So that's already jumped almost 10 beats, which is more than 10 even, which is pretty significant for only being a month pregnant. And along with that, I can feel my blood pressure being higher. I am naturally very low blood pressure, like 95 is a high, over 65. And I can feel myself a little bit more like anxiousness, like have to catch my breath a little bit more, just like something's going on where I don't feel as relaxed, which I usually equate to also blood pressure. So also along those lines, just as I'm talking, I can already feel like a tightness going on. Whereas, you know, as someone who's in shape, I never feel that. ever talking. I could talk all day long and I'll never feel that. Same thing as like if I go up a flight of stairs right now, at the top I'm out of breath. I am still in shape. I can still teach a class. I can still go all out, you know, but that instant burst of activity makes the heart rate jump significantly. Same thing with like carrying my kids right now. Like if I carry Oki up the steps, it's like draining, or even just carry him somewhere. I can feel my heart rate jump, which is pretty crazy. Also along those lines, like muscle cramping, definitely can already kind of tell that my body is requiring more water and a little bit more recovery. I've noticed the last few weeks, because I wasn't even teaching for like 2 weeks during Christmas break, because I wasn't home in San Antonio. And so, but I still wasn't like recovering as fast as I normally would, like muscularly. And I wasn't even lifting that heavy. My body was feeling a lot of fatigue already. And I was like, I don't know why I'm tired. I was kind of blaming it on the travel, the airplane ride, the kids. My husband was only in New Jersey with me for like 5 days out of like 16 that I was home with my parents. So I was kind of just blaming it on a lot of other things. But really, I was pretty fatigued. I didn't do nearly as many heavy lifts as I would have wanted to in the 2 weeks that I was home. I kept things lighter and more circuit-based because my body was just telling me that that's what it wanted to do. Now I know why. So fatigue has been a really, really big factor in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks now. I think I'm in week 4. You know, a couple nights I like had to go to bed by 9 last week, which is super early for me. So, you know, not being able to be able to stay up at night, kind of feeling the need for more caffeine already, even though I'm trying to stay at a moderate level for myself. I do drink caffeine pregnant. With my first pregnancy, with Isaiah, I did cut back on coffee and did more, or caffeinated coffee, and I did a lot of decaf. But then as I did more research and looked into it, all decaf coffee, really, they just use chemicals to take out the caffeine. So I figured caffeine's probably better than chemicals. And as someone who, you know, years past before I had my first son, I consumed like 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams caffeine a day. I would say probably during both of my last pregnancies, I was probably still anywhere though from 300 to 400 milligrams a day. You know, I tried to skip some days, like if I wasn't at work. I worked full-time in my second pregnancy, all the way through. Full-time, I was a full-time fitness manager, so it was a very different pregnancy than my first, where I didn't work at all. Well, I worked till 20 weeks pregnant, but the second half of that pregnancy, I didn't work at all. I just worked out and relaxed. It was pretty awesome. Second pregnancy looked much different, and this pregnancy, I teach about 10 to, depending on the week, if I sub classes, maybe 15, 16 classes a week. I have online clients, but I don't work full-time out of the house right now anymore. So I'm back in the house with my 2 kids. So all 3 pregnancies are probably gonna look totally different in terms of how I feel, how I recover, how I, overall life changes. So pregnancy will be different. Another thing to note is brain fog. Pregnancy brain is a real thing. Hands down, I've had it every single pregnancy. There's like periods of time though where it's really bad, and then other periods of time where I feel like I'm really sharp. You know, it's been a while, but usually in the first trimester I feel pretty slow. I feel like the second one I start feeling like really sharp, and then about half of the third, the first half of the third, I feel like normally I'm like kind of in a head fog, and then the second half I'm actually like a lot better. So I feel like that's been the trend from my past experiences and remembering correctly. We'll see. But I've definitely been in a severe head fog for at least the last 2 weeks. I don't know about week 1 or 2. I don't know that I was really paying attention, and I was home and family and Christmas. But last week I really felt it. Like I had to really concentrate in my group fitness classes and really concentrate for making up choreography and listening to music. I could feel myself like zoning. And same thing like today, like really had to concentrate when someone was talking to me or telling me like their name in class. So just more of like things just kind of they just kind of like filter out or filter through, and you're kind of not listening, not on purpose. But something's going on. I don't know if it's just our body's busy doing stuff as we're pregnant in the beginning, especially, and our, psychologically and physiologically, our mind's not there. So yeah, the head fog. Could also be some allergies, which I always have. And I'm pretty much always pregnant at the same time. I've always pretty much got pregnant January through March. Like that period of time is when I've been pregnant. When I had a miscarriage, I did get pregnant in December, and I miscarried in the end of January. And then I got pregnant immediately. And immediately after, sometime in February again. So my body likes to make babies. So a couple other things that I remember from other pregnancies, which I haven't totally noticed too much this time yet, but would be smell. When I was pregnant with my first son, like I immediately started being able to like smell like a stronger scent when I worked out. Like I never had BO smell before, but like with my first son, like all of a sudden I felt like I had that. I'm not sure if that's a side effect that anybody has during pregnancy but me. But for me, that's always been one. So I have a stronger odor when I'm pregnant. Definitely not a positive. Definitely a negative. I remember my husband even said, we were in the squat rack and I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 weeks pregnant. And my husband was like, Sam, you smell. And I was like, what do you mean? I never smell at the gym. He's like, yeah, I know you don't, but today you do. And I thought it was just the weirdest thing. So that's definitely a side effect for me. Let's see. Along those lines, like body temperature, I have been like hot and cold all day long for the last at least week. Or at least significantly, I would say the last 5 days, I've been noticing it. Specifically since I realized I was pregnant, which I think was Friday now, or Saturday. So at least 3 days I've really been noticing it. But it's been definitely happening. Like I'll just have a hot flash all of a sudden again. Like I'll be cold and then all of a sudden I gotta like take my clothes off. So very fluctuating temperatures, for sure. I don't notice that I sweat any more or less during pregnancy. I'm a pretty good sweater in general, so I don't notice those changes. I did notice that my skin did clear up better last week. Doesn't look the greatest now, but working out every day is a pretty big factor in my skin. But I did notice that it kind of looked a lot better. Like midweek, my mom was like, oh, that new skincare I bought you is working. And I'm like, yeah, I think it is. But no, it's probably just pregnancy. My skin tends to be clearer when I'm pregnant, so we'll see if that is a thing. I've had 2 boys. I don't know, could be, maybe if you have a girl, maybe your skin's bad. They say all those types of things. So we'll see what my skin does this pregnancy, but normally it clears up. My friends always told me the first 2 pregnancy that I glow. So I definitely felt like I saw a glow happening this week. Could be me. But I definitely felt like my skin was getting better this week already. So overall complexion. So yeah, and I just kind of, I don't think I mentioned it before, but with the heart rate, but I noticed my heart rate a lot too, because as I teach, and I had the last, I would say 3 or 4 days, probably starting on last Friday, I could feel myself having a harder time getting words out while my heart rate was higher. I can still get it out, but I can feel it a little bit more of a challenge. Normally I have no problem being at like max heart rate and belting out my voice. Like I've been doing that for years. It's just like riding a bike, and the last 4 days or so, I could feel the struggle a little bit, and having to like catch my breath in between a couple words or so. So that's definitely something to note. I've never taught this much while pregnant. I didn't teach past 20 weeks with Isaiah, and I only taught, I want to say 2 or 3 classes. It's about 4 classes a week with Oki, up until about halfway through. Then I might have been at 3, and then I think I think I really kept, for the most part though, three or so, almost through the whole thing. But I was a manager, so I didn't have to teach as much. So we'll see what happens. So those are all the things, I think. Oh, the last one, bloatedness, excuse me. Very bloated. At the end of last week, I could tell how bloated I was, which was really bloated, which is definitely why I thought I was going to start my cycle like any minute. At one point, I even texted a couple of my friends, like, can you bring extra pants to the gym? Because I don't have any with me, and I'm worried. Nope, just pregnancy bloat. Definitely happens, I feel like, to just about everybody. Happened for me in pregnancy 1, 2, and 3 was that immediate bloat in the lower abdominal region. You feel like you're just on your period for the first pretty much trimester, because you don't really grow too much in your first trimester overall, but there's a really bloatedness. Water weight, I could feel it in my arms, in my legs, especially by the end of the night. Just feeling like heavier, which is just already starting to hold water. So yeah, that was the last one. Water weight, already up. And the scale is up about 1.5 pounds from what it normally is. Now we obviously have Christmas factored in, so, you know, could be a little bit of the cookies. I did that. But most likely it could just be water weight too, you know, up in the scale by 1 pound or so. So that was it. So 4-week check-in. I'm gonna try to do this at every like 2 to 4 weeks, or anytime that I like see a significant change happening. So feel free to follow along. I probably won't share this actual video until I'm probably about 10 or 12 weeks. And then I'll share the rest that follow between then. So feel free to follow along and ask questions. And I would love to help anybody on their fitness journey while pregnant. So let's go. Let's do this. Bye.